I'm Chef Frank, this is Protocooks, and today one of my childhood favorites, French toast. Before we start making our French toast, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Wondrium. Wondrium has a huge catalog of short and long form videos, how-tos, documentaries. It's got a little bit of everything. And one of the things that I really want to learn is how to bake. Baking is my kryptonite. I say it all the time. I am not a good baker. One of the courses I'm watching right now is by Simcast, who happens to be one of my former colleagues, someone I've always wanted to take a baking class with, but never had a chance to. And he has a bagel, bialy, and pretzel class that I am so excited to take. He's a world-renowned baker. He is one of the nicest people you ever meet. Something that I learned from his bagel class that was mind-blowing to me is the reason why they put a hole in the bagel. Right? Couple of reasons, actually. They could carry them around on a stick or a string. They bake quicker. And they get a nicer crust on the outside. I know that people that watch my channel love to learn, and that's why Wondrium is such a great fit for our channel. Wondrium's offering a free trial for my viewers. You should give it a try. I think you're gonna love it. Please visit wondrium.com/protocooks. There's also going to be a link down in the description so you can sign up now. Thanks Wondrium for sponsoring this video. It's absolutely delicious. No, I mean amazing. It's absolutely amazing. French toast holds a special place in my heart because when I was a kid, my dad would work overnights and occasionally he would come home and make us breakfast in the morning before school. And French toast is one of those dishes that he made that really kind of stuck with me. My version is a little more fancier, like Pink in the Air chef style, but it's absolutely delicious and you have to try it. Let's talk about French toast and the reason why it's called French toast. The French have a dish that's called pain perdu. Excuse my French, feel free to correct me in the comments, but it basically means lost bread, and it's stale or old bread that they soaked in cream and eggs and a little bit of sugar and cooked to save the bread, right? They would use it to use up old bread and making something beautiful with it. This is what you're gonna need for my French toast. Milk, half and half, eggs, sugar, salt, vanilla, ground cinnamon, ground nutmeg, orange zest, and challah bread. Couple of things on the side here. I have whipped butter, whipped salted butter, and pure maple syrup. You're gonna need that as well. That's our garnish. The first ingredient I want to talk about is the bread. I like to use a braided challah bread. Now, braided challah bread, it's braided, it has a lot of nice texture and doesn't fall apart. Challah bread is basically a close cousin to brioche, but not made with butter. There's no dairy in this bread, okay? The other bread you can get is a brioche. I get this from my local Trader Joe's. They don't sponsor this yet. But brioche is really nice. It's a super buttery bread, but I do find sometimes this falls apart a little. So that's why I go for the braided challah bread. If you don't have challah bread, just use a nice sturdy white bread. Another thing I want to talk about is what you put on your French toast. And I like a really good maple syrup. Yes, it's a little more expensive. Pancake syrup at the supermarket is much cheaper, but you don't need as much of this. My wife and daughter prefer pancake syrup to this. My son and I eat this. We're a little more fancy, I guess, but you should try real maple syrup if you get a chance. The other thing I like to put on my French toast is salted butter. Nothing like that combination of sweet and salty. I use Breakstone's whipped butter. This is what my grandmother used, and it makes, every time I see this, I think of my grandmother. It's got the right amount of salt. It has some airiness to it and fluffiness to it, and when this mixes with that maple syrup on top of our French toast, it is heaven. Let's get our egg and cream mixture together. Super simple. You put everything in a bowl and blend it up. I'm going to use a stick blender. You can use a regular blender or a whisk, but I find a stick blender works really well to get the cinnamon incorporated. I just remember growing up and my dad would put cinnamon in and it would kind of clump up at the top, and the first few slices would taste like cinnamon and the last few slices wouldn't. So if you put it in a blender or you use an immersion blender, that cinnamon gets dispersed so much better. Okay, let's put the eggs in. Let's do, my dad taught me that too. Half and half. Milk. Salt. Salt's a flavor enhancer. You have to make sure you put salt in. You don't need a lot, just enough to enhance the flavor here. Ground cinnamon. Our nutmeg. Sugar. I don't really measure my vanilla. I just kind of give it a nice splash of vanilla. And then I'm going to put some orange zest in there. This is something that I love. I love orange zest in my French toast. And I'm just going to do maybe 5 or 6 swipes. Whenever you're using the microplane, you want to just go over it once. You don't want to just keep on grating. You just want to use that nice orange rind and not use any of the pith. I always give this a little tap. And you can see that it falls off. I also do this over the bowl so I get some of that nice orange oil in there too. All right, and all we have to do now is get our stick blender in there and blend it up. All right, that's it. All I want to do is let this sit for about a half hour, let the flavors kind of blend. Let's slice our bread. I like thick slices for this. You can see the inside of the challah. It has a nice crumb to it. But this is probably about 1-inch slices. This has a nice texture on the inside. Because it's braided, it holds together and it'll stand up really nice. I'm going to make about 4 or 5 slices. Usually as I get to kind of the tapered end, if it's a little smaller, I'll make the slices slightly thicker. And in the olden times, what they would probably do is they'd let this sit out and go a little stale and dry so that it absorbed more of the cream and egg mixture. What we want to do next is soak our bread. Now, you got to be really careful with this. If your bread is super firm and has a good crumb like the challah, you can let it soak for a few minutes. But if you're going to use brioche, it's going to fall apart, so you got to be really careful. For this challah bread, I'm going to let it soak for about 5 minutes. At the end of the day, I want this to be kind of custardy in the middle. My wife and my daughter do not like it custardy in the middle, but I do like it custardy in the middle. That's really hard to say. So I'm going to just throw these in and kind of move them around and let them soak for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then we cook. Get them in there. Awesome. Make sure you get it everywhere. I swear I'm not doing that on purpose. It just happens. All right, so let these soak. All right, let's cook. Let's cook. Okay, let's cook this French toast. I'm going to turn on the heat, and I'm going to go kind of over a medium heat. I don't want to be too hot. I don't want my butter to get brown right off the bat, so I have my butter, and I'm just going to put a fair amount. I want this to have a lot of nice butter flavor. This is kind of part of it, you know, like the butter is going to get lightly brown. It has a little salt to it, right? So let's get the butter melted. I know I'm like a savage with the butter, right? But the French toast will soak it up, right? And that's what I want. You can see that our French toast right now is kind of a little squishy. You got to be a little careful with it. And that's how I want it. I want it to be soaked fully through. I'm going over low heat so that everything inside cooks. This is basically a custard. It's going to have that nice kind of custardy inside. So I let it drain, get all the excess off, and I'm going to lay it in my pan. I'm probably going to get 4 slices in here, even though I made 5. Let the excess drain, squeeze it out a little if it's too much. All right, we're going to let it cook on this side, let it start to set. If it's too hot, you see your butter's getting brown, just lower the heat. Let me check the bottoms here. Okay, we're getting some nice brown. One thing I want to be careful about is when you flip these, we don't want to push down. I've seen people with French toast and pancakes, they flip things and they push them down. And all that's doing is taking the air out and taking any of that fluffiness out and making it too dense. So when it comes to this stuff, we never want to push down on it. All right, I think it's time to flip. Look at that. That one can use a little more time. We might have to flip it back. That is beautiful. Beautiful and golden brown. And now this is kind of like where we're going to let the custard on the inside set. It's on kind of low heat. We're just gonna let this go for a little while so that it's not wet on the inside. It's just kind of like fluffy and moist. Right, let me go back to the other side, flip it over. We got some nice color. Good. Well, that got a little dark. Let me shift these around. All right, time to plate. And I'm gonna show you how I like to plate it because I love my butter. So I get a nice chunk of butter, and my wife always kind of like looks at this like I'm crazy. I like to put a chunk of butter on the bottom of my plate. I'm only gonna plate up 2 pieces, but I have this really beautiful piece right here. And then, like a savage, another little chunk of butter there. And then my other piece on top. And then another little chunk of butter on top. Don't go too crazy, right? And then syrup, my maple syrup. You don't need to drown it in this. This is a really nice amber, but you do need to give it a fair amount. And that is my French toast. It's the moment of truth, time to taste our French toast. I want you to get a good look at this, okay? Take a good look at this. Look at the syrup and the butter swirling and mixing together. This is the way it should be. Almost the same amount of butter as syrup. So let's give it a taste. I'm gonna cut a little piece from this side. The inside is kind of nice, not dried out. A little bit of butter, a nice chunk of butter on there. The sweet and saltiness of it. The French toast is super light and fluffy. Just a little custardy in the middle. One of my favorite things in the world, French toast. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We have merch down in the description. We also have a P.O. box down there. I want to thank our Patreon sponsors for helping us out. And I'd also like to make a special thank you to Wondrium for sponsoring this video today. Thank you so much. That's French toast. I'm Chef Frank. This is Protocooks. Have a good one.